Hello, everyone. Welcome to AEIVA Behind the Scenes. My name is Christina. I am the AEIVA Education Manager. AEIVA is the acronym for the Abrams Engel Institute for the Visual Arts. We are the art museum at the University of Alabama at Birmingham, UAB. So I'm joined today by Tina Ruggieri, who is our assistant curator at AEIVA. And this series is going to look at objects in our collection, take you behind the scenes a little bit about who we are, what we do, as well as revisit some of our past interns and our current intern, and look at pieces in our collection. So Tina, welcome, and thank you for joining me today. Why don't you start off a little bit about telling us how you got to AEIVA?
So that's a long story, but I will condense it for this video. I found my love for contemporary art when I was around 26 or 27. And at the time, I decided to go back to school. And so I enrolled at UAB in the Art and Art History program and to get my degree in art history. And so part of your schooling in the art history program is that you can work at a museum as an intern. And so, of course, AEIVA being a part of UAB, I immediately reached out to Christina, who is with us, as well as John Fields, who at the time was the curator, but is now our senior director. And between the two of them, I was able to do 3 internships. I did collections management internship and a curatorial internship, which then turned into a job. And to make that story short, then turned into the assistant curator. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be there and how much I love AEIVA and UAB.
We are really excited and so proud of you and how far you've come. So I'm really excited that you were willing to do this with me for this one. So everyone at AEIVA has very vast interest in art and very different interest in art. So what I'm hoping that we're going to do is look at a little bit about your interest and then also talk about a piece in our collection that kind of relates to that during the series. So today we're going to start off with, well, first off, before I switch over the screen here, tell us a little bit about what your interest is in art.
So my interest in art is abstract art is one of my personal favorite areas, which is kind of can be a hard subject for people because it is just pure abstraction, meaning that it's based on color and form, which means that I'm more of a formalist because I like abstraction, which looks at the way that these artists use color and form and how those interact with each other and how they apply their material to other materials.
Yeah, that's so that plays into, as I'm about to share the screen, if it will. Yeah. So whoops, where did it go? All right, there we go. So this is a piece in our collection by Peter Halley, who happens to be one of your favorite artists. Yes. And so this is, first off, Peter Halley got his MFA in painting from the University of New Orleans and eventually wound up at Yale, which was his undergrad degree as well. But he became a professor there and head of painting and printmaking at Yale University. He now lives and works in New York. So this is a piece we acquired in 2005 after Peter Halley came to UAB and gave a lecture. And the piece is called Core, and it was created in 1991, and it is a screen print. So Tina, why don't you tell us what you like about Peter Halley and then specifically this piece?
Okay, so before I talk about Peter Halley in general, what I like about this piece specifically in our collection is that it is a screen print, which is an art form in itself. So the screen print is a technique where the artists use mesh to transfer the image that they draw on the mesh to a different type of material. So that in this case, he used paper, but you can also use t-shirts are made this way, posters are made this way. And here's a picture of Professor Doug Balass using one of those mesh screen prints. And
yeah,
so,
and I want to interrupt you real quick. This is Department of Art and Art History here at UAB, Professor Doug Bloss. This was a screen printing demonstration that the department did back in 2015. And I'll click through this real quick. Here's a color picture of them doing the process. And this is what it looks like. So each color has to be put on separately, right?
yes. So each color is a separate screen that is drawn on the screen because you can't mix the two. So that's how they do it. So if you see 2 different colors, that means 2 different screens. If you see 4 different colors, that means 4 different screens, and so on. So it can become a very lengthy and involved process, which is why it is considered an art form. But what is nice about this is that it does create multiples. So the artists can typically choose if they want it to be a multiple of 15 or 25 and so on and so forth. And what I love specifically about prints and editions is that it makes it art accessible to everybody. It's not just accessible to people that can afford like the larger paintings, but it makes it accessible to everyone. And so that's what I love about screen printing and about the printing process in general. So what I love about core when you're looking at it, it looks, even though it's a print, so remember he had to use this mesh to create it. So he did draw this image onto the mesh, which gives it that very textured look. It gives that process of as if he took the paintbrush and painted it on the paper himself, which is not too far from the way it would be done, except for you use a squeegee over this hand-drawn area. And so what I love about Peter Halley is his use of color. He's very much known for what is called day glow colors, which is essentially just neon and very bright colors so that it really grabs your attention when you see it. What we're looking at in terms of what Peter Halley is trying to portray, he can be a very complex and difficult artist to understand, but he is in the center. We have a square, this bright red square, which he refers to as a cell or a prison. And oftentimes you'll see where he has incorporated vertical lines or horizontal lines in the middle of this square to create a more identifiable prison. On the outside of the square, we see 4 separate rectangular forms that are called conduits. We have 2 coming out at the top and 1 on the left and 1 on the right side of the piece. And these conduits are what he refers to as the electric magnetic field. And so basically that is how energy, so you can think about how power lines get into your house, how we get energy, the way we connect with one another. And this very bottom part is called the ground. That's pretty typical in most artworks. But what I love about him using the terms cells and prisons and conduits and this idea of our power grid is that, so as Christina mentioned, he lives in New York City. So if you think about these high-rise apartments and the way that you look out, if you're looking out the window of a high-rise apartment, all you see are these windows which have vertical or horizontal lines. That's kind of like the cell when you think about it. And then when you look at the way the power connects to each building, those are the conduits. And you can even take it as far as seeing that these conduits are the way we connect via social media. So it's a very abstract idea, but it's also very real. And then you can also just love this piece for its simple shapes and its use of color if you don't want to get into the bigger picture.
So I really love how you describe this piece and what his impetus was getting into these conduits and cells and such like that. Particularly the fact that it's a reflection of what he was literally seeing around him when he was living in New York, and now that he's back in New York, what he sees there. And so I love it because it's still relevant today in that it's not just a reflection of our lives. This piece, even though it was in 91, we're just getting personal at home computers at that time. We acquired it in 2005 when MySpace was already a thing, but Facebook throwing it back to the time when we had MySpace. But Facebook was just really emerging. I think that was the year that it went kind of nationwide. And then now here in 2020, social media really dominates our lives. So conduits, electrical, like that, all of that is still relevant. It's still a reflection of what we see outside of us, and maybe even more so for those of us who don't just live in New York, for everyone now, which is really cool. So this is looking outside for us at home as we're kind of all going through everything. Art can be a stress reducer, right? So there are things that we can do. We can create art, we can look at art, but we can create art too. So if you head over to Art Play, which is a UAB's art community education that we're in partnership with, they are putting up videos of how to do art. And in fact, there's one that's already up by Molly, our K through 12 coordinator, who teaches you a little bit about printmaking. So this is a different type of printing where you're pressing things on. Screen printing is a much more, it's a more involved process using things that you don't necessarily have in the house, but it's still a form of printing. And so I encourage everyone to check that out and see how you can make a piece of artwork with things around your house. But also, this is a great example to help you see how your house and your situation can influence your own artwork. So thank you, Tina. I am going to stop the screen share, maybe. And I hope to see you guys all back. Keep checking back for more from us, and check out our YouTube page and social media, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.